Hi everyone and welcome to Protocol 36. Yes, I'm back and so is Marvel Spider-Man 2. So let's break down the gameplay demo. Obviously it was shown in the PlayStation Showcase today, which a lot of people including myself were expecting to see it there. Finally after not showing it at all in 2022. So we begin the gameplay demo with a rival of Kraven, or at least somebody his goons basically picked out. And it seems like Kraven is trying to find an equal, something that could test him and push him like he said in the previous trailer. And of course that didn't really go well. So he kills him pretty easily. In order to up the ante, one of his goons tells him to go to New York where there's a bunch of superhumans for him to hunt. And in that screen we see a lot of characters. A lot of who we already met, like Black Cat, Prowler, and Rave, who is of course Yuri Watanabe, but we finally get to see what her costume looks like in Marvel's Insomniac universe, as well as of course Tombstone, both Miles Morales and Peter Parker as Spider-Man, Lizard, Taskmaster, Kingpin, and Shocker. So he's probably going to try and fight all, if not some of them. Obviously Peter Parker and Miles Morales will be the top of the list, as well as of course, as we see later on, the Lizard, which we will talk more about when we get to that part. So 6 months have passed and of course we get to Queens. Obviously Spider-Man fans all know that Queens is basically Peter Parker's birthplace and of course the area he grew up in. However, we unfortunately didn't get Queens in the last 2 games, but the fact that we are getting it in this game is a very good sign, and thank God for that, because I've been begging for Insomniac to show Queens and Brooklyn in the next game, and thank God they did that. But not only did we get Queens, we also got to see Peter Parker, which looks like he broke out of Aunt May's home, at least the home that he moved into during Miles Morales, and it looks like the house he grew up in with Uncle Ben and Aunt May. But once he breaks out, we of course see him wearing the symbiote suit. How he gets the symbiote suit, especially when the last time we saw it was with Harry in Oscorp, we don't really know yet. We just know that Norman basically lets Harry out, but of course it found its way to Peter, and how it looks is absolutely phenomenal, much closer to the comics than I imagined. So it's not just a black version of the advanced suit, it's actually like the classic comic book black suit, which is really awesome to see. But the material reminds me kind of like the Tom Hardy Venom films, where it's more so slimy than looking like an actual cloth suit. If there's one thing I would have changed about it, it would have been that, but other than that it's perfect. Of course with a bit of padding, which is probably because of the advanced suit which Peter is still wearing underneath. But yeah, it looks really cool, and we get to see basically how it looks during combat. And of course he's using a lot of tendrils, very similar to Web of Shadows. That's the vibe I got from the whole combat system, and just looking at it, it's just absolutely gorgeous. I made a video about this almost 2 years ago. If there were Spider-Man games that Insomniac was looking at for inspiration, Web of Shadows would have definitely been one of them, and it looks like that was the case, which is really awesome to see. We also get to see brand new finishes, both using tendrils as well as physical combat, with Peter just basically just kicking a goon on the wall, as well as using his tendrils to knock out 4 people, picking them up in the air and just slamming them onto the ground. And one thing is pretty interesting to see is of course being able to switch from Peter to Miles. It's something I discussed heavily on the channel before. I talked about it like it could happen, but it was basically the top of the list for me. I don't know if the game will actually make you switch. It looks like it might do that. If that's the case, that's fine. But if you're able to switch like GTA 5 style, that would be brilliant. But for that, we need a confirmation from Insomniac themselves. Hopefully we'll get some news about it soon, especially when the game is coming out in full. But in terms of the narrative, we're basically chasing down the Lizard, and Peter basically mentions that he's the only one who can save Harry because he's dying. Obviously Peter knows this because of the first game, where Mary Jane basically goes to the Osborn penthouse, and like us as the audience, we find out everything that's going on with Harry, where he basically inherited a genetic disease by his mother, which Norman is trying to basically save him. We saw Dr. Connors in the Miles Morales, so all of those is basically connecting, and Peter of course having a history with Dr. Connors and Harry being his best friend, he just wants to be able to do his best in order to save not just Harry but also Dr. Connors, who's obviously being chased by Kraven. Throughout this whole gameplay demo, we see Peter be very aggressive, which obviously is no surprise due to it being the side effects of the symbiote. It didn't always start out like this. The symbiote didn't really change his personality originally. It was something that was changed by the 90s animated series. Obviously once the show did it, basically from then on it became a stable for the symbiote once Peter Parker got it. Many adaptations later, even to the point where the comics even retconned it, where it did change Peter's personality a little bit. But yeah, that key aspect was from the 90s show, which is great that it's still influencing other Spider-Man stories in the future. However, when we get to Miles, we not only see him do a web slingshot, which other Spider-Man adaptations also did in the past, of course the movies, of course the anime shows, and I recently even found out that the KyZmA mobile game also did it, which is pretty interesting because obviously Yuri Lowenthal voiced Spider-Man in that game. So bit of a connection there, but obviously it's a very Spider-Man thing to do. Brand new addition to the Traversal is of course the web wing. Of course in the first game it was a backpack where Peter created his own web wing, however it ripped and he tried to use it to glide. Of course that didn't work, so of course Insomniac was trying to set that up. At least now it looks like they were trying to set that up, and it looks amazing, literally so good. Obviously gliding isn't something new to Spider-Man as he did it in the comics, but of course it was made popular thanks to the MCU films, where we see Tom Holland's Spider-Man do it quite a lot, pretty much in all 3 of his solo films at least once. So that looks a ton of fun and I can't wait to try it out once the game is out and once I get a PS5. I almost forgot to mention that Genki is also present and he's basically remote controlling a drone, which in the gameplay demo they mentioned they basically stole from Kraven earlier in the game, which we're going to find out how once the game is out. It looks pretty cool. At first I thought it was the Vulture or something like that, but obviously that wasn't the case. But yeah, he's present to help out Miles and Peter. But once we get to the warehouse and try to find the lizard, it's pretty much kind of like a horror movie. And then we see his skin as well, and apparently he's gotten much bigger as well, which kind of makes sense because in this game he looks huge, probably to show how powerful Peter has gotten in the black suit, so that we can see him basically beat up, or should I say us beating him up in the black suit, which is going to be one hell of a fight. And it also kind of checks out since in the Insomniac comics he is basically relative in size to 616 Lizard, which obviously he's still big, it's just that he wasn't gigantic like we see in, you know, in the gameplay demo. But yeah, I thought it was something interesting to point out. And we see a massive action sequence with Miles and Peter not only just stopping Kraven but also trying to save as much civilians as possible, and we basically just see Peter going nuts and try to threaten Kraven, mentioning how he warned the Kraven to stay away from the lizard, which is obviously interesting to see. But obviously what's going to be more interesting to see is how that fight is going to play out, and with Miles basically being more concerned for Peter, noticing how his personality has changed, even Genki asking him if he's like this, and Miles responding he's never like this at all, kind of setting up that the two might actually be fighting. And if we are Miles fighting against Peter in the black suit, 10 out of 10, the game of the year already in my opinion. It would be absolutely phenomenal if that actually happens, and I really hope it happens. But when it comes to Miles's combat system, it's actually really cool. It's of course similar to his combat system in his solo game, which of course they used that as the base, and then they basically just amped it up to 1,000, and even to the point where he's just shooting out venom blasts as if he's Electro himself. To the point where we even see him charging it up as if he's performing a Kamehameha, which I actually thought was pretty brilliant and really fun as well. But yeah, just like seeing Miles and of course how much he's grown as Spider-Man is really cool to see, and just seeing him and Peter just working together and basically performing combos together really just shows how much they have basically synchronized and basically just became one, which is really cool to see, even when Peter's wearing the symbiote suit. But yeah, just seeing the teamwork just shows how long they both came along, especially with Miles after his first game. How long after Miles Morales it takes place, I'm not really entirely sure. If I had to guess, I would probably say a year just straight up training. At least that's my guess for now. Obviously Insomniac could come out and just say otherwise, but of course that's my basic guess right now. And one other thing I also wanted to talk about was of course the transformation, when we see Peter using the black suit, just him putting it on and everything just looks really cool, especially that scene where he's in the shadows and we just see the silhouette of the tendrils. It just looks absolutely sick. I can see why Insomniac waited a whole year just to show us anything, because this was worth the wait in my opinion, and I can't wait to see what's next. I'm going to continue making more videos about Marvel Spider-Man 2, especially when it's coming out this year. If you have any suggestions down below about the gameplay demo, definitely put it in the comments down below. Also put down in the comments down below what you think of it and how hyped you are for Marvel Spider-Man 2. I'm glad I was able to do this, and if at any point you enjoyed this video, I really appreciate if you could drop a like, and if you want more, subscribe to begin Protocol 36.